Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wheel Chat with myself, Anton Mitchell, and
Justin Borlos
that's
here,
right.
checking in all the way over here from Australia. And today we have a special guest.
Yes, we do. No, I was absolutely delighted. I'm really excited, actually. It's one of our first guests on the podcast. Absolutely delighted to have Andrew with us. Andrew is currently and is the CEO of Phoenix Instinct, and we're going to find out all about Andrew and his amazing wheelchair that he is producing. I don't want to tell too much because Andrew is much more interesting than myself to listen to. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you both.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. We were just actually having a little laugh before we came online. It is 6 a.m. here in the UK, and Justin is sunning it up currently in Australia. Justin, tell us about what the weather's like.
Sun's going down at the moment, so now we can actually breathe. It was 35 degrees today, which is good when you're in aircon, but not so good when you're coming in and out of appointments or when you're standing there outside trying to find some shade. No complaints over here. We're loving it over here.
Right.
Yeah, Andrew, thank you so much for. What time is it where you are?
It's 6 a.m. here, and it's about 3 degrees outside, so you're 2 degrees off where you are.
So you're with Anton over there in the UK, and is that where Phoenix Instinct is as well?
Well, Anton's in England, Phoenix is in the north of Scotland. So, yeah, there is an England and Scotland. We're all part of the UK, but we're probably about sort of 5 hours driving apart, something like that.
Yeah, we're not too far. We're not far at all. But, you know, it makes me very proud and very happy to be speaking to a fellow Scotsman today. Andrew, talk to us. Andrew, tell me a little bit about yourself and your story, if you don't mind, and the listeners, most importantly. That would be really, really great.
Well, my name's Andrew Slorance. I am the founder and CEO of Phoenix Instinct. I'm talking to you from my wheelchair today, which I've now been pushing for 41 years. I had a spinal cord injury when I was 14. And there are a few key things you remember when something like that happens. People often say, oh God, you're not going to forget that. I forget a lot of the emotions that you go through when something like that happens, because all got put in a box and locked away not to be experienced again. But some things you don't forget. I remember lying on my bed in Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, and an occupational therapist coming to my bed, and she said, Andrew, I've come to order your new wheelchair. Bear in mind, I haven't even considered I'm going to spend my life in a wheelchair yet. I'm only about 3 weeks after my injury. I'm still in bed. And she said, do you want pneumatic tires? And I said, I don't know what you mean. She said, well, do you want air in your tires or do you want solid tires? And I was like, air? She said, do you want full arms or desk arms? And I said, I don't know. She said, well, you're going back to school, aren't you? So you're going to want to get under the desk. I said, yeah. Right, I think you should have desk arms. Okay. And then she left. And a couple of weeks later, she came back again and she said, Andrew, I've got your new wheelchair for you. And I have to say, it's rather a nice example and very much nicer than many I give out. And she parked it next to my bed and she walked off. And I looked at this thing and it was huge. It was a gigantic chrome steel hospital wheelchair, the kind of thing you see outside a supermarket as a courtesy wheelchair. And my best thing that I had at home was my rally race bike. I mean, I loved this thing. I could cycle no hands. I wasn't very good at anything, but I could cycle no hands. I could go around right angle turns and not fall off. And I looked at this wheelchair and I thought, you've got to be kidding, right? You've got to be kidding. This was it. I don't remember the emotional part of, hell, you're not going to be walking again. You're going to be using that. I just looked at this chair. I embraced life using it. But man, this thing weighed 20 odd kilos. My dad could hardly lift it into the car. Going through rehab and the hospital and everything, that's obviously brutally hard. But the hard stuff happens when you go home. And you're sitting in your kitchen on your own, and outside is terrifying. Outside is just this awful place where it tries to trip you up at every step. Even going along a pavement, I never realised as I walked along pavement that they were sloped for the water to run off. It's like pushing a wheelchair in a straight line on that when it weighs 20 kilos and you're 14 years old. But, I went back to school. I went back to the same school that I'd left a year earlier. And I left, that was awful. School was completely inaccessible. We're talking about the 80s. They used to get all the students to carry me up the stairs to get to the maths department. Half the subjects I was told I couldn't do. I was studying biology and they said, Andrew, we don't think it's safe for you to do science anymore. You might hurt yourself. You can watch, but you can't do any practicals, and you can do the theory. Oh, okay, I'll do a different subject. And I went to the technical department and I said, I'll do woodworking. And they said, no, that's not safe for you, Andrew. And I went to the cooking department. I said, right, I'll do cooking. And they said, no, you'll burn yourself. And so I left school when I was, 17. I had to repeat the year. I think I might have even been 16. I went to study photography at college in Motherwell. But always, I was looking at a wheelchair thinking, this thing is terrible. But just about this time, lightweight wheelchairs came on the scene. And I thought, okay, this is better. And the first lightweight wheelchair came along that I got. It was called a Sweep 24F. It was a solid frame, rigid frame, much smaller than the horrible steel chrome chair I've been using. And I thought, things are getting better. Wheelchairs are getting better. I mean, this thing had quick release wheels. It had scissor brakes. It had clothes guards. It had side guards. It had adjustable center of gravity. It had a folding backrest. It was quite small. It was perfect as far as wheelchairs could be. And I thought, right, things are getting better. The wheelchairs are going to advance from here. Years later, by now, I'd finished photography. I was now into video. I'm going to jump forward about sort of 15 years. I'm working in television production. And the life's pretty good. But at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this wheelchair's not done much in the last 15, 16 years. When's the next thing coming? What's the next thing they're going to do? And the years go by and nothing happens. I think people would be shocked today to realize that the chairs they're using are using exactly the same technology that they were 50 years ago. You wouldn't just struggle to find a new feature on a wheelchair today. There isn't one. There isn't a new feature on any lightweight chair. They will sell you all this latest tech they've got. But actually, the latest tech in wheelchairs is that the frame's a bit different to it was last year. It's got some new anodized bits on it. Maybe it's made of carbon, but the actual advancement in the tech itself was very poor or non-existent. So the years went on. I was now working for ITN in London. I worked on Channel 4 News. I had a great job. But I still thought, this wheelchair suck. I want to change it. They're not going to do anything. They are not going to do anything. I was working with one of my best friends, an Australian chap from Sydney, and we wanted to make a documentary. We wanted to make a documentary on traveling around the world. We were actually going to make a documentary on gurus that claimed they had miraculous powers. And we thought this would be a great thing for me to be the guinea pig for.
Is that how you met Justin, Andrew?
Not by this stage. He's very like my pal, although we pitched this to Channel 4 and it got commissioned. And this is when I left my job on TV to go independent. And we did actually travel around the world meeting gurus that claimed they had miraculous powers. And it did go on the telly and it was an absolute riot to do. But when I came back to London again, I was now a freelancer and I thought, this is my chance. I'm going to reinvent the wheelchair. And Will was saying to me, mate, you're crazy, but go for it. He was a total gung-ho sort of guy. This is going to be amazing. So with no knowledge of product development, no knowledge of running a business or what it would take, I started meeting up with companies that made stuff out of carbon fibre, Formula One companies and all these sort of guys. And I found myself very quickly in deep with this design for my new chair I was going to make. I started at the kitchen table. I got a big block of architect's modelling foam, some sandpaper and a craft knife. And I spent 3 weeks carving what this new chair was going to be like. I didn't have ideas beyond it being light and looking very nice. I always found that wheelchairs looked really ugly. Why did they have to look so bad? Why did they have to look right angled and straight lined when our body is so organic shaped? Why did they have to look so clinical? And so I wanted a really curved, sexy looking chair. And so I carved this thing. I took it to a carbon fibre company and I said, I want to make this. I'm going to have to jump forward a few years because it was very hard. It took 6 years to actually get it from the kitchen table to being a market reality. I did have to get investors on board. They, at the beginning, appeared to be really good for me. They backed the idea. I mean, I was bringing them something that I had self-funded and I'd got a grant from the government to help make a one-off prototype. So it wasn't like that I was starting from stone cold with them. We got it to market, and then it changed quite a lot for me with them. It became all about exit strategy, about goals, about sales figures, how many you're going to sell this month, how many demos you're doing. And so it was very tough going. It changed from the passion that I had to evolve wheelchairs to making them money. My equity just evaporated in the business. And in the end, I left that company, with a little bit of help from them, giving me a good old push. I was out.
Wow, how did you feel at that point, Andrew? Did you feel isolated or demoralized?
It was devastating because I felt these investors are carrying on without me to try and make their profit out of my journey. This was my experience. I put everything in from my age of 14 and my experience of spinal cord injury and living with it for so many years. I was now unemployed. I had remortgaged my house. I had a massive amount of debt I'd racked up making this thing happen. And now I didn't even have a job. And I thought, you either have to get real, go back to TV, work, get a job again, or you have to go again. And I thought, I can't let this be for nothing. I'm going to go again.
Wow.
I'm going to try it again. And so Mary, my wife, was just like, that's what you want. I thought, I think it is. I think I have to go again. I've been out of TV for years while I've been doing this. I can't just drop back in. I mean, it's quite a closed network.
So you're riding on passion, Andrew. You're riding on emotion, on history, on everything that you've carried since you were 14. Everything is pushing you towards this journey, this ultimate goal.
I was sure that mobility could be so much better. And, I was a big fan of other entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs. Say, Steve Jobs was a product-driven man.
Yeah.
He believed you make the product first, then the profit comes. If you want to make profit, go and open a McDonald's franchise. There are easier ways to do it. If you're driven by profit, you're going to do what every other wheelchair company does. You're just going to make something with some different anodizing on it, a bit of funky upholstery, and say, job done, there you go, nice big profit margin on that.
Yeah.
And when you look at how wheelchairs are designed, they are tubes that are bent and cut and welded together. It's not very complicated. But I thought, I'm not going to embark on another wheelchair, not right now. I had an idea for a luggage product. I also struggled when I traveled with my job with ITN as a video editor. I mean, we went all over the world doing news stories. I was the only wheelchair user in the industry that traveled with a news crew. It was challenging to move on my editing kit, but I improvised a way of doing it. I improvised a trolley attached to my wheelchair, and I'd move around these heavy flight cases that I had to take about.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to turn this idea into a wheelchair luggage.
That's cool.
Concept. And so I bought a 3D printer. I learned how to do CAD on YouTube and put together a kind of prototype. I went to a local discount store. I bought a soft bag. I cut the wheels off it. I stuck some Omni wheels on it. I used the 3D printed bracket I'd made in my kitchen, stuck that on it. And I thought that this will work. I then contacted a company in China and asked them if they could make me a real kind of prototype. And so it went on. I managed to get a grant from Scottish Enterprise here in Scotland. and wheelchair luggage was born.
Hang on. So you've, just to recap for everyone, because I just want to make sure, by the way, Andrew, but I know we've not known long each other long, but I'm not the quickest in the world at things. We've left the company that you were working with the investors, making the wheelchair. We found ourselves in a position of, oh my gosh, we're going again now. We've made that decision. We've chatted to your wife and you've said, right, no, this is what I want. And we've gone straight into the luggage, or
Yes, we've gone straight into the luggage.
Okay, great.
We're started a Kickstarter campaign with the prototype I've had from China.
Yep.
I thought that this is how we find out if there's actually a market for this thing.
Wow.
So basically what it is a hold all with omnidirectional wheels. That's wheels that can move in any direction, and a bracket that allows it to clip onto the bar that's on the back of most lightweight chairs.
For anyone, I'll just clarify as well, Andrew. If anyone who can't picture it just yet, just picture like a smart drive that sits on the back of the rigidizer bar of the wheelchair, except it's not a machine, it's a bag. So the wheel itself is like that omni wheel where it can turn left and right whilst the main wheel can remain straight. So it's a pretty, I'd say, is a consistent design. Is that where you actually got the design from? Did you see this
for the smart drive, Justin?
Very dare you, Justin.
It's okay if you did it anyway. I wouldn't have any judgment. I think it's a good way to sort of put two products together. But
the wheels come from Australia. There you
go. Australia.
But I did this Kickstarter. It got backed. Kickstarter is an amazing thing for any entrepreneur that's got a product they want to develop. It's one of those things that you can. It's quite difficult to make all the videos and the information you have to do for it, but it's free money. You can put your products up there and get people to back it.
Hot topic, free money. Alarms are going, bells are ringing.
When you're a founder that's just lost everything, there's the chance to raise £20,000, whatever it is, by people that back your idea. Obviously, you have to give them the product. You can't just say, "I've got this great idea, give me cash."
Yeah, of course.
The Kickstarter will bank that money until you're ready to actually use it, and they'll then feed it to you. And there is a lot of trust that you will develop a product, and not just say, "Thanks very much, I'm off now." But we did. We developed the product, and we got our first customers, and I set up Phoenix Instinct as the company.
So when was this, Andrew? In timelines, how long ago was that?
That was in 2015.
2015, okay.
Yeah. I got the investors in with my previous company, which was called Carbon Black, in 2012. And by 2015, I was out. I set up a new company. I developed a new product. And I called it Phoenix Instinct because I felt the Phoenix is the bird of legend of fire, that can never be destroyed. You can burn it down and you can knock it down, but it will always come back. And I thought that's what every person that lives an active life in a wheelchair has got. They are Phoenix.
And that's not coincidence that it's anything to do with occupational therapy, because the occupational therapists have the Phoenix as their character. Did you not know that? There you go.
Never tweaked on that one.
There you go. Yeah.
No, it was. I felt that it was a bit of a poke in the eye to the investors that probably thought I was done and dusted and finished. But really it was about, this is what you need every day as a wheelchair user to live out an active life. You have to get up and not let the previous day take you down. And whatever you face, you just have to keep going. And so as an entrepreneur, that's what you have to do. And as a wheelchair user with a spinal injury, that's what you have to do. So Phoenix Instinct was the name.
It's great.
And the wheelchair bags took off pretty well. We've now sold over 8,000 wheelchair users have one of our bags now, which is pretty great because, started off the Kickstarter project in my kitchen. And then in 2018, the Toyota Mobility Unlimited Challenge was launched. So Toyota, because of the evolution of electric cars, they're diversifying into other areas because the combustion engine is done. And as a Toyota executive told me once, if we don't do something, we're going to be finished in 20 years. And what they're doing is They want to own mobility. They want to have a foot in the door on every piece of mobility, whether it's a skateboard, a bus, a wheelchair, whatever it is. If it makes you get around, they want to be part of it. So they launched the Toyota Mobility Unlimited Challenge, which was specifically aimed in the disability mobility sector. They were looking for a company with an idea that promised to revolutionize mobility for people with lower limb paralysis, with a grand prize of $1 million to develop their idea. I saw this on LinkedIn and I thought, you're crazy, $1 million. What's the catch? How much equity are they taking? How much IP are they going to own? And there wasn't any. There was no equity take. There was no IP take. This was a competition with the winner getting $1 million.
Free money just finds you, doesn't it, Andrew?
Well, if you're in a business, you have to go and find that money. The idea that we would actually win that was ridiculous, and I was sure that the big medical corps would pitch in some sort of idea. So I thought, what would I do with $1 million to develop a new wheelchair? What would I do? And I'd always thought, well, my chair would be great if it had four-wheel drive. How do you make the front wheels move? And I'd always thought about mechanical devices, some sort of linkage, but it was all too cumbersome and too heavy. It was never going to really work. And then I just thought, why don't you make the front wheels electric? Electric front wheels on a wheelchair. So you're pushing the back wheels and you've got electric front wheels. You've got four-wheel drive. That'd be amazing. And I thought this is definitely part of the idea. The other part of the idea was I thought I needed a bit more beef than that to actually get half a chance of getting through to the next round. So by now I'd committed to the idea I was going to enter this thing. I thought center of gravity is the key component of setting up any wheelchair. Where you put that axle forward or back depends on how tippy the chair is or how agile it is. What if this was intelligent and it could move itself with the body weight transfer of the user? So if the person leans backwards rather than falling over backwards, their axle moves backwards to keep them stable. And when they lean forward, it moves forward with them, so the chair is light and agile. I factored this into the idea as well. The paper proposal with a video got through to the first round of selections. I went to London. I met with all the judges. There were 14 judges, all from occupational therapy, from engineering, from physiotherapy, from the wheelchair sector, Toyota engineers, electronics engineers, you name it, they were all there. And I pitched this kind of Shark Tank style to them. And one of the judges who was in the wheelchair industry said, you want to make the front wheels electric? I said, yeah. He said, that's not going to work. It's not going to have any grip. There's just not enough grip to make that work. And I said, I think there is. I think if a little stone chip can stop your wheelchair dead in its tracks, there's enough weight on the front of it that if you reverse that and make those wheels powered, it'll pull you along. But this is why I'd put in the center of gravity part of it as well, because I thought they would just murder me on the one idea. I think it'd be a double-barreled thing. And they backed it and said, okay, let's prove it. So Phoenix Instinct was selected as one of 5 finalists to go forward, and we were given a bit of seed funding to go and make our prototype.
Wow. I mean, at this point, I'm excited. This is exciting. I don't know if anyone else is gripped by this, but I mean, where's this going to go, this story?
I'll tell you where it's going. I'll move that bit on quite quickly. And so ultimately, after nearly 2 years of development of this proof of concept, we were supposed to have a grand final in Japan as part of the Tokyo Paralympics.
Yeah.
It was all going to be very, very flash. I think this was really why they had done it. It was part of a big kind of marketing spin they were doing at the Paralympics. COVID had come along and there was to be no Paralympics, no foreigners traveling to Japan. And that was all canned. So it was a video presentation to the judges. And the prototype we had actually worked really well. You could see the concept. It was very rough. You could see open circuit boards all over the thing, but it actually worked. It was made of carbon fiber. It was very sleek. We developed our own method of manufacturing for it. So there was not going to be any expensive Formula One companies. We were going to do this all in-house. And we won.
Oh,
We won the $1 million.
woo! That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable, yes. When the broadcast came and we were sitting there, this was all done online. All the finalists were sitting there in the little boxes on the screen. Who's going to get it? And they announced Phoenix Instinct from Forest, Scotland.
Oh,
Well, they're going to give us $1 million to take this prototype and turn it into a real thing.
oh my gosh.
And that they did. They gave us the money.
But
Can I ask you, just in terms of how that structure works? So, in order for you to get to that stage, are you just working off $0? Like, it sounds like there's you and a team. Are you paying yourself and you're paying a team members? I know you get the $1 million now, but before that, what does the business look like before you get this grant?
Well, we still had money coming in from selling our bags. So that was an income stream. But they also gave each finalist, they gave seed funding to develop their prototype of $500,000. So each of the 5 finalists got $500,000 to develop their proof of concept thing. And then the winning team got a further $1 million. So we got $1.5 million.
And if I know Andrew, being a Scotsman, he probably only spent 20,000 on developing. So
yeah, she's quite crafty when you're developing it. It doesn't go far, People think, $1 million. That's sweet. First, you got to convert that into pounds, which unfortunately for us came just as Brexit was happening, and the pound was very strong. That murdered us on the exchange rate. Just for the record, the worst idea ever, and I was no part of it. That's actually hit us quite hard as a business. We sell quite a lot of our stuff to Europe, and it's really clobbered us.
Yeah.
So we then had, right, we've got this money. What are you going to focus on? It's not enough money. We're going to do the center of gravity thing and the electric front wheels. And I decided the electric front wheels was the stronger idea. It was everyone knows what a power assist is. Everyone knows what a wheelchair is, but they don't all know what center of gravity is. They don't quite get it. How are we going to get the reimbursement bodies and even the customers to think, yeah, I want to add this weight to my chair of an intelligent center of gravity because it's going to make the chair so much better. When it did, it made it feel very engaging. When I would use this chair with intelligent center of gravity, it was like, this thing's talking to me when I'm using it. It's working with me. I'm not fighting it. But the electric front wheels was going to be much more, not a lot easier to do, but it was going to be easier to do. And it was going to be more saleable, I felt. So we focused in on that. That's what we were doing. Now it's a thing. Now it's a real thing. We launched it earlier this year, back in May, and it's called the Phoenix Eye. And the Phoenix Eye is, it's changed my life. I've not moved so easily since I had a spinal injury. I've used a lot of wheelchairs in the last 41 years. I now move, because the front wheels are on castors, any direction I point the chair, it'll go. It's not like some of the other power add-ons that can't go backwards. This can go I don't even need to change direction with any control, just by moving the chair. It's like a super lightweight manual chair that moves itself.
Yes. So let's just, again, for any listeners who haven't actually seen the product yet, as a preface, I love this product. I think it's a very exciting evolution in wheelchairs. Yeah, I think it truly is amazing. But just go through how it works. So we know that it's powered castors. So castors are the wheels that go on the front of the chair, those tiny castors. And then in terms of using the chair, do you push on the push rooms, or is there an alternate box? How do you actually use the device? How does it go forward?
So the wheels detect. So if you imagine you're sitting stationary and you give the chair a push using the hand rims, the front wheels detect that they're moving and they kick in the power automatically. And then there's a little dial on the side of the frame that I can use to add or reduce power. And I can also put in braking through this dial. When you think about the stone chip that stops the chair dead in its tracks, the same thing works with braking. We slow down the front wheels, speed them up, you get very controllable braking. The difference with the front wheels that I hadn't quite realized is that front wheels on wheelchairs get stuck on things because they're only turning because they're running on the ground on a conventional chair. They don't have their own propulsion. When you give those front wheels propulsion, they don't get stuck on things. They just drive over them. So something like a stone chip that normally you would be going along the pavement looking for and avoid, I just drive over it now. And the chair is so smooth when you're in it pulling at the same time as you're pushing, it overcomes just about anything. Thick carpet through hotels, gravel, wheelchair nightmare. I can cross gravel without a lot of difficulty with this chair because the front wheels don't get bedded down into the soft surface. They're pulling you out of it at the same time as you're pushing.
I mean, that's pretty unheard of, Andrew, to be honest with you. I mean, if you speak to most wheelchair users, I mean, gravel is just not, it's not even conceivable for somebody to be able to really realistically get through. And if they do, they're reliant on somebody helping them most of the time, right?
And that's because the judge on the panel said it's not going to work. And so no one's done it. This is preconceived idea. It's not going to work. Actually, it does work. And not only does it work, it's the reason wheelchairs are so difficult to use. It's the front wheels. It's like pushing a supermarket trolley everywhere you go.
Yeah, because we naturally just think that the main wheel is the push wheel, right? Is the main.
And it is, but it's not the navigating wheel.
No.
It's not the first point of contact as you're going along the road. And even the ride on this is so smooth. We had a guy recently, and he said on his conventional chair, he always has lots of muscle spasms due to the vibration. When he gets to the Phoenix Eye, he said, there isn't any vibration. I said, no, those front wheels, not only do they drive over the stone chips, the undulations of the road, the texture of the road, it's not going along vibrating on every little bump that it hits. It's driving over every little bump that it hits. And that smoothing effect's extraordinary. So for me, when I can use as much power as I want. I can turn up the power to be this is 300 watts of power we've got on the front two wheels. So it's enough to be able to go along at a fair old speed. It's enough to be going down a steep hill and just put it in braking mode and just coast down the hill without having to hold on to the handrails. Can you imagine going to the bike shop to get a new bike and the sales guy saying, check it out, it's all carbon fibre, it's got this, it's got that. And when you're going down a hill, just grab hold of that tire with your hands.
Go zigzagging, go as slow as you can. You're right.
Ridiculous. I mean, I used to go down hills in my chair, terrified. And I deliberately have to crash into a lamppost just to stop the momentum. That's quite normal. Going downhill, just find somewhere to stop. Plow it into the wall or stop against a lamppost, put the footplate against the lamppost so you can rest your hands for a minute. We wouldn't let our children go out on bicycles without brakes. But our disabled children are supposed to go out in wheelchairs that don't have brakes and go and build an independent life.
It's bonkers.
Talk about limitations. And so I'm very unforgiving about this industry. I think it's unacceptable that these big corps have done absolutely nothing over the last 50 years. They've just been turfing out the same thing with a different dress over and over again, even to the point that simple mechanical downhill brakes don't exist on wheelchairs. I mean, most people would say that's ridiculous. Of course they do. No, actually they don't.
Until recently, I will say that there is a new company that has developed downhill brakes, but it's hub brakes.
The wheel has the braking on it. Yes, I've seen them.
Yeah, it's hub brakes, which is a nice design. But yeah, that's still going to, I guess, wear over time. So those brakes still need to be replaced.
It's wheelie and you go up a curb on it. I've tried them.
Yeah, it makes it difficult for that. It obviously adds a bit of weight, adds a bit of cost to it. You have to get a very specific wheel.
The regulatory standard on wheelchairs doesn't require brakes. It requires a parking brake. It requires that the wheelchair has to be able to sit on a 10-degree slope, pointing down with its allocated load, so for us 100 kilograms, and not move an inch. Then you have to turn it around, and it has to be able to do it with the wheels, the chair pointing up the slope, and not tip over backwards and not move an inch. What happens when you take the brakes off on that slope? No one cares. How the person got to that point of the hill, no one cares. As long as you can park it on a hill. And so the regulatory standard says no brakes required. None of the manufacturers are going to do it.
Yeah.
Why would they bother investing in creating downhill brakes when the regulator says you don't need to do it?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things going on here, isn't there? There's so many things going on. I mean, it's intuitive what you've made. It's not just.
I think hybrid, which I call this pure hybrid, part electric, part manual, is going to transform wheelchairs. It has to. And okay, I'm inventor of it, but it's so good, it's so life changing that ultimately it has to be on all wheelchairs. That's where it has to be.
I agree. Just to catch everyone up on where we're at so far. So, Anton, you mentioned, I guess the great things that we love about it so far is the fact that it is intuitive, it's easy to use, it gives you your assistance uphill, but now also downhill, which is something that is quite unique. And I guess the outdoor performance, it doesn't look like it would perform outdoors. If anyone's seen this chair before, it's got tiny, I dare say, 3-inch castors, which is I think I've only done one wheelchair with a 3-inch caster because they're so small. They're really good to reduce rolling resistance and they make the chair a little bit lighter and it's easy to maneuver, but you do not want 3-inch casters on a typical wheelchair. But the fact that the wheels are powered, like what you're saying, it's kind of like a front wheel drive on a power chair. On a power chair, the first wheel to come into contact with an obstacle is a powered wheel. So rather than friction fighting with this rock that you refer to, it's pulling itself over it. So even though it's a tiny wheel, you still get good performance outdoors, especially if
you can better performance with it than you did if you used a bigger wheel. We used a lot of wheels in the development, and the bigger wheels, obviously, they weigh more, but with the power, you could get so much torque in the front that it became difficult to control. So we had to curb back the amount of power that we're using. But when you think about the guys in sports chairs doing basketball and tennis, they all have very small front wheels. And that's because they can turn really quickly. They've got great agility. So we've taken that, not quite as small as they use on the court, they are 3-inch wheels, and put them in an outdoor setting, which, as you say, normally, that would mean the front wheel, a manual front wheel, will get stuck on every little stone chip going. But because these are electric, they just drive over those stone chips in a way that you would need to achieve with a 6-inch wheel normally. And you get the agility. So we've got the agility that those guys on the court have got because the wheel is small with its self-propelling power. So it's a completely different thinking of what a caster wheel should be like on a wheelchair. But you're right. You would first look at it and go, why have they done that? Oh, what a shame. They've got it wrong. And then people that say that to us, then they watch the videos of me driving over gravel and they go, oh, okay, right.
Yeah. But I mean, not coming away from the power wheels, don't get me wrong, I'm excited. I'm so excited for people to see this product, for them to use it. I think that there's it's not even potential. It's there. It's for people. It's available now. But I know you've not dismissed it. I know but the wheelchair that you've created, the actual wheelchair itself is phenomenal. It's 6.5 kg. It's carbon, right? It's molded to the body. Tell us about the actual wheelchair itself, because you said at the beginning your passion was to have something that looked more organic, like the body, right?
Yes.
Tell us about the design of the actual chair.
Well, like you said, I wanted it to be a very organic shape. And I know from doing the previous business that to make a carbon structure light and make it strong, you need big sweeping curves. And that's how carbon fiber works. That's why a Formula One car is all curved and sloping in every direction. Whereas other carbon chairs in the market are made like tubular framed metal chairs, but they're made of carbon fiber. And the problem is you get points of stress focusing in on sharp transitions. So where you've got an L shape, say, and two bits joined together, the stress will focus in on those points and you can cause a failure. So if you have a big sweeping curve, the stress is channeled around the frame, not focusing on any right angle. So part of it was to make a carbon structure nice and light and strong, you need to make it in big curvy shapes. And ideally, you need to make it in one single piece, not have lots of bits that are glued together. Because again, when you glue with carbon fiber, the point of carbon is you have a weave that runs through the carbon.
Yep.
And this conducts stress. So you can make the stress travel where you want by the direction of the weave. So with us, we've made the frame in one single piece of carbon fiber. So it's really challenging to develop a process to do this, but we did that as part of the development. So when the stresses come into this chair, they literally just travel around it till they dissipate. There's no points of focus for it to cause a failure. And we've been able to do that because we've done a single piece of construction. So there's no break in the weave. There's no glued points. There's no right angles. And as a result of that, you get this very smooth, organic shape that fits perfectly to the body, very natural. If you look at nature, there's no right angles and straight lines.
Yeah.
It's all curves. And that's what we've done with this chair. And, that the reason other wheelchair companies don't do that is not because they wouldn't like to have nice rounded shapes. It's because it's very challenging to make a curved shape in lots of different sizes and configurations that wheelchairs have to be done. I want my wheelchair center of gravity here. I want the seat depth this way. I want that seat width this way. And we've had to do a lot of work to make it happen.
See, I think you're being very complimentary to the other parts of the industry. I think that actually, to give you your due, Andrew, you're the one that's actually thought of this. I think a lot of people haven't thought that far.
Maybe.
And I actually think we're even going as far as saying there's not a lot of people who are wheelchair users like yourself who are actually doing the design. And that's something that parents parents say to me all the time. End users say to me all the time, say, Anthony, clearly no one who's actually used or has a contact with either myself who's got a physical challenge, disability, or I've got a child or a partner who's got it. No one's actually had that contact to be able to think, because it's just somebody in a room who's coming up with a great design, but is in the practical side of things, experience is really shining through for me on your design. It's coming from somewhere deep within.
It's a lifetime of, that's one thing that I like about it. It's probably, if you believe in purpose, I believe this is what I need to do. If I have a purpose, this is it. And someone once asked me that when I was doing my previous business that had the investors, said, is this your calling? And I lost my breath for a minute. I thought, no, it's not. I didn't know then that the best thing that could happen to me was to get kicked to the curb by the investors and start again and use my experience in a different way rather than being saddled with them wanting to take it one direction. And now it was the best thing that ever could happen. And this is my calling. This is absolutely it. And when I see a new customer using it, they just light up. I had a guy recently, really buff basketball guy, and he came in, he said, my brother wants me to try out this chair. Personally, I like pushing. It keeps me fit. Well, okay. He got in the chair, and literally within 10 seconds, he was like, wow, oh my goodness, I have to have this. It's just because it's so much easier. You forget when you're using a chair how hard it is. That seems ridiculous, but you think about it for a minute. You just get used to it. You get used to how hard it is. You get used to the fact that to move off from a static position, you got pushed.
Yeah.
And if you're on a carpet, that's quite hard. You get used to the fact that when you've pushed, within about 3 seconds, your momentum's gone, you're going to have to push again. And when you don't have that anymore, and you push off and it just keeps going, it's just a joy. It's just a joy that it's a bit like getting a piece of your life back. And that seems a very dramatic thing to say, but I do feel that. I walk the dog now holding on to the dog lead and the chair's just taking itself. Whereas before, I had the dog tied with a piece of hose pipe and dog lead to the side of my chair and using Gorilla Tape to hold the dog lead on. And that was my routine each morning so that I could have my hands free to push. Now I don't need my hands free to push. And it's that sort of little thing that I can grab my tea in the kitchen and come through to the lounge, still holding my tea and have a drink along the way. That when I come to a hotel carpet that's totally thick and difficult to move on, I just rack up the power. It's no problem at all. It's taken away a lot of the little things that made wheelchair life harder. And as you say, I can transfer it into my car with a 6.5 kilo transfer weight, which is pretty much the same as a lot of lightweight chairs on the market. And it's got its built-in power. And no one knows it's there.
It's
I
absolutely
also had this thing
incredible.
about electric where I thought, nah, that's a slippery slope.
Mm.
Once you start using electric, next thing I'll be using a hoist to get into my bed. And before I know it, I'll be on bed rest, because you're going to give up that strength.
Yeah.
And it just isn't true.
Yeah,
It's
because I
just
think
not
that
true.
is actually I think there'll be lots of users listening and actually going, yeah, I don't want power. I don't need power, because if you don't use it, you lose it. That old phrase, right?
Yes.
So essentially, something that I realized about the chair is that you don't have to use it with power either. I mean, it can just be a phenomenal manual wheelchair.
And to be a manual chair.
Right.
But the guy I told you about, too, the really buff guy, he bought one that day. He uses it as a manual chair inside, going around his house, and he puts the power on when he goes out.
Okay.
Whereas I just use mine with power all the time.
Yeah.
I've had 40 years of pushing this thing. I can't be bothered anymore. But it just seems a very natural progression for chairs to make, and we've shown it can be done. I really hope that the rest of the industry kind of thinks, actually, we can do hybrid chairs, and they come to us, and maybe we can work together to make this thing available in lots of different brands. Because for me, it's a calling to improve mobility. People, especially if they also had spinal injuries, because that's what I relate to. It's very hard when you first have to go out there and push a wheelchair. And that being seen to struggle is a massive barrier. It was a big barrier for me to go along the road knowing how hard it is and that it looks like it's really hard work. And you come to a hill and you're sweating it to push up that hill. And you just feel very vulnerable, especially when someone comes up and says, can I give you a hand there? Because that just makes you feel like, oh God, I look like I'm struggling so much. And now I don't. Now I coast around, and I know people look at me and think, how's this guy moving so easily? There's no power because they can't see it. It's discrete. It's built into the front wheels. So those people that are thinking, oh, that power assist, I don't want to do that. I don't need that. No, you don't need it. Of course you don't need it, but you might really like it.
Yeah.
And it might just make life a lot easier. And you might have a lot more energy at the end of the day than you do right now.
Yeah.
And you might not wreck your shoulders. And I noticed that young people today all use power add-ons. I'm old generation, where I'm like, no, I'm roughy tufty. But nowadays, they're all using smart drives or smooths or these kind of things. They go to the gym to get fit. Everyone else does. Pushing a wheelchair does not make you fit. Pushing a wheelchair just wrecks your joints. The older you get...
I always tell my clients that, I was like, you never see a wheelchair machine at the gym. And there's a reason. Like, it causes... And I do get a lot of young clients who say, like, I don't need a power assist. I don't want to use it. If I don't use it, I'll lose it. But again, I think there's a few key things in there. One is that your shoulders are not designed for such heavy loads over a long period of time. And yeah, you can always progressively overload any exercise. You can do... I actually don't believe there's a bad exercise that exists in the world. I think there's bad progressions to any certain movements. But we can all do any movement that's possible. We just have to build our way up. But the problem with the pushing a wheelchair is progressive overload is one day you're doing 5 kilos, then you're doing 5.5 kilos, then 6 kilos, and you're doing it over a few weeks period of time. With a wheelchair, there's no kilos, but one time you might just be pushing flat for the day, but then you might have a lot of hills and you're going up and down, and there's no consistency in that. So you're asking for an injury. Imagine if I just said, hey, Anton, I just stopped you in the middle of the day. I said, hey mate, quick, give me 50 push-ups right now. You're like, okay, no warm up, boom. And then tomorrow I was like, all right, 5 push-ups. And then 75. And then we're going to do this. There's no consistency in the movement, which is why injuries occur. So whilst young people who are not as prone to injury will feel like, hey, I don't need it, you might need it. Well, you will need it once your shoulders start to wear over time. You start doing micro damages over and over. And then not only is it debilitating now, it's going to be debilitating when you're 60 years old, 70, 80. Like if you're doing a slide transfer now and thinking, yep, I'm fine, you don't want to stop doing that side transfer. You don't want to stop being able to reach above head to pour a kettle for that tea you mentioned. So I do think power assist is something that everyone should be considering because our shoulders aren't designed for it, as well as the fact that we can't progressively overload this exercise. So you're asking for injuries. So.
But I think you're spot on, by the way. I think that, when we look at what currently is out there, which obviously Andrew did in this part of his, probably in his intensive research, not just as a user, but as a business person looking at a business, there's some great power assist units out there. We can't knock them. They've taken us to a certain point. This is the next stage by the sounds of it, which is really exciting. But there are other benefits which we've not discussed. There's things like, going up a curb, going down certain terrain. When you've got a third wheel on, whether that be a track wheel at the front or a power assist at the back, there are limitations. Are there any limitations to this, Andrew? Are there things is there more development in the process of coming out with a Phoenix i2, or where do you see this for the future?
There aren't a lot of limitations. I mean, if you can do it in a manual chair, you can do it more easily in this. When I was using the prototype for this last summer, I was making a patio in that garden, and I had to carry 20-kilo slabs on my lap from round the house, from where the guys delivered them at the front gate, round to the back. And I got it on my lap, and I turned up the power, and I could just cruise round the side of the house, across the grass, to the mud where I was doing the patio, and slug it into the sand. And doing that in a manual chair, having to push, with each stroke, it would be trying to fall off my lap. So I've kind of hands-free, so I can use it in every scenario. I guess the one place where you have to put a bit more effort than you might do with other power add-ons is going up the hills.
Okay.
Because it depends on the slope. On a really steep hill, you're taking away about 50% of the effort that it needs to go up the hill. You're still going to have to push. So it makes it easier, but it doesn't just coast you up the hill, because it is pulling you, and there is a loss of traction on the steepest slopes. And we're looking at how to solve that just now. But I can't say for me, as someone that's been pushing a chair for 40 years and would take on a steep slope, regardless of zigzag my way up it, I can do it in this chair a lot more easily. So
can you do it in reverse?
You can do it in reverse, yeah.
I'll just clarify for the listeners as well. Just like any front power assist device, whenever you go uphill, there is going to be limitations, because once you start, say, approaching a 45 degree, it's quite extreme, but just for the idea of imagery, all the weight is going to go into the back tires. So this is where rear attachments, or attachments that are the back wheels, they get good traction up hills. And so one thing you can do, like one thing I tell people to do on front mounted power assist, if it's too steep, zigzag if you can, but if not, you can do it in reverse. And I wonder if you've ever tested.
I have actually tried that. It does make it feels a little bit strange going up a hill backwards, but it does have grip.
It's like a moonwalk in a wheelchair.
You're quite right. Going backwards does get rid of that traction issue.
Andrew, can I bring up two things that when Anton mentioned limitations, there's two things that I thought, like one idea for a 2.0 version, and I want to get your idea on another aspect of the chair. One is, I thought, what do you think do you think it's possible to ever put a joystick on this type of device? Because I picture some of my clients, perhaps with cerebral palsy, or maybe even like multiple sclerosis, where they don't have the ability to functionally balance with their core muscles. Do you think, I don't know what the technology looks like, do you think that's a part 2 version?
We did actually do it in the development. The idea was, can you steer this? And the answer was yes, it can be done, but you don't get, because you're only putting power into the left or the right wheel, and you're braking one side, giving power to the other, you don't get the sharp turning that you get with a electric chair that's got wheels on it that's being driven by the rear.
Yeah.
So you don't get that kind of, it's very difficult to make a right angle turn. So we found that you could control it. So you could do quite sweeping turns, but to just turn around and face the other way was difficult. It would need some control of the fork itself.
But I'm glad that Justin asked that, because I've been thinking on a similar line, but I was thinking more an attendant benefit, because if somebody's being pushed where they're not able to, because a lot of our clients, they get lethargic, they might have gone out on a journey and they've been able to propel for a certain amount of time, and then they get tired, especially my younger clients, and mum or dad in that particular instance, as an example, would need to push them for the rest of the day or what have you. Could they still get the benefit if somebody did have, I mean, obviously on the Phoenix, it doesn't have handles because of its sleek design currently. I know it's something that you can do and it's an option, but
we've got a customer just now that wants handles, so we are going to create a mold for them to have handles.
Yeah.
So that will be something that we do. Yes, so it would work in the, because there's if you adjust the speed on the control dial, then by pushing the chair, it's going to run at that sort of speed. So it's always and you can push it faster or slower than the speed on the dial, and it will sort of make up in speed or slow down with you. So someone pushing it would definitely get a benefit. And maybe on future ones, there could be a dial on the handle.
Yeah, it's just suggestive, isn't it? Because it's just from experience, these are the things that being out there, and I'm just listening and I'm just thinking of family. I don't know, I'm sure Justin's probably the same. It's like you're thinking of people that you work with, you know, that you're like, oh my gosh, they would go for this. They're going to benefit so much from all these sort of, or the scenarios, the rebuttals that they've given you in assessments. You're like, wow, this is ticking a lot of boxes for sure. I've just got one more question because we're going to need to round up, unfortunately. But we can definitely have, if Andrew's happy, coming back on, because I'm just loving listening to you, to be fair, Andrew. I'm sure the listeners are too. One of the scenarios is that a lot of people who have maybe power-driven wheel that they're doing, so something like, for our listeners, like an e-motion, e-drive, it can be quite tippy. You can tip back. So you're not allowed to have it without a set of anti-tippers, quite rightly, for safety. Talk to us about, do we need anti-tippers? Does it affect
especially suffer from that? That'll be because suddenly they can have all this power going into the back wheels. It's a bit like if I was sitting in my chair and I suddenly was leaning right back and pushed on the big wheels.
There you go.
You may be prone to tipping. But that's with Phoenix Eye. That's the same as it would be on a lightweight chair. You put the center of gravity where you want it.
Yeah.
But because the power is in the front, you're not getting that tipping unexpectedly because you've turned up the power.
And it also probably works as a bit of a counterbalance as well, having motors.
Well, it does make the front end a little bit heavier. So for the people who are the very active user, we tend to put the CG an inch further forward than they would normally have.
Okay.
So my chair would normally have had a +3 center of gravity, so 3 inches further forward from the backrest. But on a Phoenix Eye, I'll have a +4, and that counterbalances the added weight of about a kilogram between the two wheels that we have on the front, and makes it feel like it's a +3. And similarly, if someone wants a very stable chair, we give them a +3, which in conventional wheelchair terms would feel like a +2.
Interesting. Okay, I mean, that's,
you follow that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do. Justin, do you want to explain that for the listeners, or is it, I mean, I think Andrew's done a pretty good job, to be fair.
Yeah, I think you get that. Basically, the further forward the wheel is, the more tippy it's going to be, but the easier it is to push, and the further back it goes, the more stable it is. But I think from what you said, it's fine. And I think when people said, like I've only sat in it for a short period of time, but when it comes back to Sydney, I can't wait to have another play with it and see how the tippiness goes. But it seems like we have options for adjustment when we build the chair anyway, so that's good.
Yes.
I mean, could we see a new Olympic race with the Phoenix Eye? I mean, this could be a new category completely, right?
Well, powered chairs in the Olympics. Well, I was talking to a basketball guy recently, and he said, "This be awesome on the court.
Yeah,
and we'd be able to move so fast and not have to keep pushing." I know, except the regulations when they didn't know it. So who knows what it'll be like in the years to come when hybrid becomes normal.
I think it needs to be.
Cars are normal now, so why not hybrid chairs? And I'm excited for the fact that after 50 years of static innovation from this industry, there is actually now something out there that's a tangible difference. See, every time I got a new wheelchair over all these years, I always naively hoped it would transform my mobility. I'm getting the newest one, I'm getting the lightest one, and none of them did. none of them made an iota of a difference. They might be easier to put into your car, but that was it. They might look better, but that was it.
Mm-hmm.
But this actually does change your mobility, which, let's face it, it's what wheelchairs all about.
You know what it seems like, Andrew? You mentioned the 50-year experience. Like, how much does it really change over 50 years? And I think power assist has actually come a long way. So I'll say there's definitely a lot of development with that. But in terms of the rigid frame chair, how much development has actually come and how much has really changed? It's kind of like the differences between, I don't have an iPhone, but the iPhone 13 versus the 14. Is that what we're up to an iPhone? I don't have
16, Justin. I mean, come on.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, the 16 and the 15, like how much is really different? And we can forgive technology over the space of 12 months and be like, all right, well, look, it's not that much different from last year, but they've got a titanium edge rim or whatever, and the camera is a little bit better. And yeah, that's great. But if you were thinking, could you imagine how far the iPhone has come? Is it, say in the past 15 years? And here we are 50 years later, and you can barely tell the difference between a wheelchair.
Well, when I first started using a wheelchair, I used to answer my parents' corded phone with its rotary dial. And since then, the iPhone has come along. The internet's come along. Self-driving cars have come along. AI's come along. Yet the wheelchair, without excluding this chair I'm sitting in today, the wheelchair is the same chair I was sitting in when I answered the corded phone.
I think that's a great way to end because, Andrew, you are a revolutionary. You are going to take us. I have no doubt that in a year's time, we're going to have to pay big money to have you on. So, we're going to...
We had you on the first.
No, honestly, Andrew, I genuinely believe, and I know Justin feels the same, that this product is just going to go from strength to strength. This is revolutionary.
That's great to hear because you guys are industry experts. And, one of my personal nervous moments is when you've got to go and present it to an industry expert. I presented to the Oceania Seating Symposium in Melbourne last year. It was the first time that I'd actually shown it to a whole conference hall full of occupational therapists. And I thought, they're either going to murder me and say, what an absolute load of rubbish, or they're going to say, wow. And it was the latter, and they lapped it up. They just loved it.
Can I say, I was also there at the OSS in Melbourne, and Andrew was there. And let me just give you the context. Andrew is someone he is an expert, but I get what you mean. Like, you're in front of therapists who prescribe wheelchairs all the time. He gave such an amazing presentation when I was like, well, like it actually inspired me because I present every now and then, and I made me think, oh, that's how you need to do it. He did so well. And then me, relatively confident, as you say, Andrew, an expert in my field, Australian, talking to other Australians in my own country. I had to go up in that same crowd and literally give a 60-second spiel about a poster that I had stuck up in that thing. And I fumbled. I was mumbly. I stuttered my words. Everything was blurry. I was sweating. And that was for 60 seconds. So for Andrew to say, I'm get a bit nervous, mate.
When they said to me, you've got 40 minutes, I was like, wow, I'm going to talk 40 minutes.
Oh, mate, he did. It was amazing. I was like,
you drop into the zone, don't you? It's like you get tunnel vision and it's like, okay, you're on, just do it. I've lived and breathed this wheelchair and my own journey that I can rattle this stuff off quite easily.
No, look, your passion, your desire for success, it comes through. But most importantly, you want to change the experience. You want to change people's lives. And that for me is what I will take from chatting to you, that you have put everything from that 14-year-old boy who unfortunately had that terrible accident, but you've changed, you've taken something. When somebody says, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, you certainly have, Andrew. You really have. And I know it's been an incredible, I mean, I'm not wanting to disrespect the journey that you've had to get to this point. And I'm sure, it's been really tough in moments. It sounds like you've had real challenges, had to really dig deep and take risk. But that risk is really going to become the reward of others. I genuinely believe, Andrew, other people are going to have genuine reward from your risk. And that, for me, is what will take this Phoenix instinct, this Phoenix eye, into next generation wheelchairs. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you. I'm sure our listeners are going to be smashing online, getting in there. They're going to be reading all about it. We're going to put a link on here Don't forget, everybody, if you want to click and subscribe to Wheel Chat, don't forget to get in, and we will get you that link for the Phoenix Instinct. And people are available to try they can get in touch with Andrew. I'm sure we'll put your link on there as well, Andrew, if anyone's got any questions. But certainly, just in closing, thank you, Andrew, for your time this morning. It's been absolutely amazing listening to your journey. Now, it's a pleasure. Justin, have a great evening.
You too. You guys have you guys have a great day. And Andrew, I would love to have you on again another time. Maybe we can do like a brainstorming of what else we would do with $1 million. What other weird ideas we would have for the industry.
Guys,
I think that would be fun.
Absolutely. It's Justin. Great shout. That's it. You've cracked it. Next episode. Guys, don't forget to click and subscribe. You've been listening to Wheel Chat with Justin Boulos and Anton Mitchell and our special guest, Andrew Slorance. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.